Welcome to this special edition of Schuman Talks with Hanna Gopko, the former chair of the Ukrainian Parliamentary Committee on European and Foreign Affairs. We were going to have a double interview last Wednesday with our normally scheduled Schuman Talk on the 9th day of the month, this month, March. But Hanna was out of the country on a mission for her country, raising military support for the current war effort. But I'm very grateful that she's made time in a very busy schedule to join us today from Kiev. And so, Hanna, welcome to the studio. Welcome to this special edition of Schuman Talks.
Thank you, Jeff, for inviting me. And I think it's really important to inform your audience about the situation in Ukraine and what the civilized nations could do for us to win the war.
So, Hanna, my first question to you is, how do you view the overall situation? Yesterday, President Zelensky said that the war had reached a strategic turning point. What did he mean by that? Do you agree with him?
I could only say that the fighting spirit of Ukrainian nation and the bravery of the armed forces of Ukraine within this 17 days of hellish nightmare, so just proved that Ukraine is winning. Ukraine is winning because our God is with us. So this is, I think, key message, because during all these days, I cried. I never before cried so many times, because seeing pictures of killed kids, and also you and the world saw how Russians attacked the maternity and children hospital in Mariupol. So, and then all these pictures, how many Ukrainians, the bodies of killed Ukrainians, so they are in one common grave. Bird. So of course you cannot, like a human being, to accept this reality without crying. But I think we have global mission, and the mission, it's just why God decided that Ukraine has, by this fight, to make other nations free. And I think this is the price we are paying now. And of course, I do believe that finally in the US, people will, political elites will understand that they will not be afraid of Ukraine defeating Russia, because it seems like they don't have strategy what to do after Putin with Russia. But we have the plan, we have the vision. So actually, victory of Ukraine, it's important to stop authoritarian regimes attacking civilized nations.
Yeah, Hanna, the world has been amazed at the heroism, the steadfastness of the Ukrainian people, of your president, of all of you. And we've seen your heroic effort, and we see, in a sense, this is your darkest hour, but it's your finest hour, in a sense, very reminiscent of the time when Churchill said, we will fight them on the beaches, we will fight them on the streets, and so forth. And that's the resolve that unexpectedly for Putin, the Russians have run into and realized even if they were able to take control of all the cities, they could not control the hearts of the Ukrainian people. And the world has been proud of you. And it's a devil's dilemma that I think is being felt here. How to intervene, how to stop this unprovoked aggression without catalyzing a third world war. And that seems to be the dilemma that you're having to face as you deal with other delegations coming from other countries. How's the situation for you personally there in Kiev?
So my question to the whole civilized nations and collective West, does morality end at the NATO border?
Yeah. So that's what we're going to be confronted with. Indeed, you know, how many war crimes need to be committed before other nations step in?
So the use of weapons of mass destruction against civilians is a crime against humanity and a violation of Geneva Convention of 1949. So actually, by killing civilians, the aggressors' forces continue to commit crimes against humanity as defined by the Statute of the International Military Tribunal and the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. So cynically, disregarding all the requirements of the Geneva Conventions relative to the protection of civilian persons of time in the war. Look at Mariupol. In Mariupol, 400,000 people now are drinking water from which they boil from snow. So because no gas, no electricity. And women which gave birth just 2 days ago, she has nothing to feed her baby. Mm-hmm. Isn't like a beginning of genocide? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is my question to many, all international organizations. Remember the League of Nations, which collapsed, and then we established the UN. But at that time of Holodomor genocide organized by Stalin, actually the League of Nations never condemned Stalin. And now UN, it's great to have a UN General Assembly resolution demanding from Russia to withdraw their military troops from Ukraine immediately, unconditionally. But what is next? We need to see this coalition of willings, which will help us to stop Putin, because it's about nuclear terror, it's about genocide. Because when Lavrov, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, is saying that they attacked the maternity and children hospitals, they did it by purpose. They knew that there are pregnant women there, so they are criminals. So actually, an international tribunal should be also not just for Putin, but also for Lavrov, for Shoigu, for all the State Duma. Sanctions are not enough for them. So this is why we have to stop and punish Putin, that another dictators knew that international rule-based world.
But Hannah, the International Tribune too, is not that also toothless? Because so long as Russia is a member of the Security Council, it can never actually enact anything.
Jeff, full-scale offensive against Ukraine within 9 years of ongoing Russian hybrid aggression, this is a high time finally to reconsider all mechanisms that were established to protect the global security and peace architecture. If it's not working, then we have to invent and to kick Russians out from Security Council of the UN. And because the veto right of Russia and China in the UN Security Council is the right to kill.
Yeah,
let's be frank.
It's exposed the need for institutional change. The structures that were put in place at the end of the Second World War are not sufficient for the current situation. And that's a long-term thing. That's not the immediate issue that you're facing on a daily basis here and the people in Mariupol. And how about you there in Kiev? What is your what's your family situation? What's your own personal security situation?
Jeff, I think for me, as a mother of 11-year-old daughter, my 40-year-old birthday was in Warsaw, where we established International Center for Ukrainian Victory. Yes, I believe in God. So no doubt, Ukraine is winning and the victory will come soon. So this is why, for me, it's crucially important now to generate international military assistance to our army, to our territorial defense, which is a volunteer branch of armed forces, to stop all these atrocities, to this nuclear threats, which is coming because they are occupying nuclear power plants, all these rocket attacks on residential buildings. So I'm here just to stop and to avoid new deaths. So this is like my mission. So my daughter is in safe position, but our responsibility is to protect those children and who lost parents. And now we are also working in Ukraine. And one of the discussion I had with my parents, so when the war is over and victory comes, we will take 1 or 2 kids which lost parents and just to foster them. So this is also our responsibility. What after victory? So we have to establish not just Marshall Plan for Ukraine, which is important, to recovery plan for economy, rebuild destroyed infrastructure, but we also have to establish a special fund to support all the families which lost, like Ukrainian defenders.
Yes. Well, congratulations on your 40th birthday, but I know you didn't want to celebrate it under these circumstances. And I know that you've had a long-term view as well. You've been writing elsewhere, and I've got some quotes here. The future of the continent actually is located in Ukraine. The fate of Europe will depend on the solution to the Ukrainian problem. That was a quote made in the British House of Commons in the 1930s. And the transformation of Ukraine into an institutional state is a marathon and not a sprint. A successful democratic Ukraine means stronger and resilient Europe. Ukraine will ultimately help transform Russia and curb expansion of authoritarian regimes. This is a perspective on Europe that most Europeans have never had, in terms of the central geopolitical role that Ukraine has actually played long term, actually in the making of European history. This is something that the Yale professor Timothy Snyder has been stressing in his many lectures that are available on video. Timothy Snyder. And it's actually opened my eyes to see so much more how Ukraine really are the gates of Europe, which is the title of one of your a book by one of your historians. Can you comment on that? This perspective of Ukraine.
Actually, what should I add? That victory of Ukraine will have geopolitical implications, not just at the European continent. It's important for Indo-Pacific region, because we know Chinese expansionist plans. So, and also North Korea and others. So why? It's important to convince NATO leadership, US leadership, and I will keep telling them, and asking them, does morality end at the NATO border? So if you now are just observing how Ukrainians are being killed, then tomorrow it's look, we'll return it back to you, because it's like in Bible. If something bad happens and you keep silent, you'll become like a supporter of this issues. So this is why I'm urging, look, we will help the West to develop a strategy towards post-Putin Russia, because I used to work with many indigenous people from Russian Federation, and still working from Idel-Ural, Povolzhia region, which is 6 republics, Bashkortostan, Tatarstan, Mordovia. So all of them, they have their governments in exile because Putin conducted repressions against them. So we have the vision what to do with post-Putin Russia. And we also have, and Moldova. People are waiting there for victory of Ukraine, because the situation with Transnistria, where Russian troops is, so it's also about their security. Belarus, when we are appealing to Belarusian soldiers, don't join Putin's war against Ukraine, because you will be sitting together with Putin at the tribunal. So stop supporting Putin in this war, and you will get a chance to fight with us against these dictators. Because Belarusian society, after all tortures, repressions, all war crimes against Belarusian activists, so they deserve also to become free from this dictatorship. So after Soviet Union collapsed 30 years ago, it seems like it's God's purpose to make Ukraine as a God-blessed hero finally to collapse. Because when Soviet Union collapsed, this evil empire didn't collapse. And Putin, just look in Moscow, what they are having. They have like Lenin, which is not in mausoleum.
He hasn't been buried. They haven't buried him. In other words, the need for decommunization is reflected in the fact that they keep his body there out above the ground.
They are praying to dead man who wasn't buried. So it's crazy. So can you imagine what is the spirit under the current Russia? Instead of saying, so Soviet Union time and all Stalin, so this is not about modern Russia. So we are really, we are condemning this. And they are praying to Stalin. The monument of Stalin is also in the Red Square in Moscow. So they are paying to evil. And Russian Moscow Orthodox Church, Kirill. So what they are doing now, instead of stopping Putin, so they are blessing Putin. They are blessing these crimes against humanity.
From God.
And I'm calling the world also to stop this, because this is not about praying and it's not about God. So they are not believing in God. So all Russian Orthodox churches, this is the mafia, criminal branches of Putin machine, which authoritarian machine.
Now, Hannah, you've had personal contact with President Biden in the past, and last week you sent me, or this week you sent me a letter that you wrote to him personally. Have you had any response on that? Do you want to say something about that letter?
First time we met was Biden in 2014, when he used to be the vice president. And then I showed him St. Sophia Cathedral and told President Biden, if Putin's propaganda says that Ukraine is artificial state, St. Sophia Cathedral, which was built at the beginning of 11th century, just say that when Moscow didn't exist, that we are
400 years before Moscow existed,
Yes, so this is my message. And Biden was like saying, oh, I see how big love of your love to Ukraine. And I told Biden, I want the whole world to love my country as I do. So, and now, of course, when we are demanding javelins, when we are demanding drones, because you saw how they are bombing Ukraine. So we need anti-air missiles, anti-tank missiles. So, of course, I had to appeal to Biden, actually, to provide maximum assistance, not to delay, not to see if we are winning, because there are some forecasters. They told Biden that within 3 days of Russian blitzkrieg, we will fail. This was wrong approach. And now there are another experts which are saying within 3 weeks, Ukrainians will not resist. No, we will not surrender. So we will only surrender for God. This is the only way we could do. Never again. This is for everybody in the West. You told never again. And never again happened when Russian bombed Babin Yar 80 years after Nazi conducted massacre against Ukrainian Jewish community. But never again, we will never allow Putin to return Ukraine back to the Russian sphere of influence. Never. So this is our message, and actually we are winning. And and it's what is really important, to stay in love. For me, this was probably one of the hardest moments, when your heart was crying, heartbroken periods, when you hate, like when you started to hate Russia, Putin, everybody. So, and then it's important not to fall in of the trap of our enemy, because they want us to be like they are. But no, Ukraine is a country of love. And have you seen these pictures of newborn kids, how pregnant women are giving birth in bomb shelters? So it's about life, because when you are giving birth, it's about pain and it's about blood. So, and this is how Ukraine and the new civilization is being born in Ukraine. And these pregnant women, they are just showing the example that bombing, rockets, everything. But Ukraine, it's about love and life. This is what I would like to deliver to everybody in this world.
Yes. Have you had any response from the White House on your letter?
No, but we do hope. But they read this letter. What I was received message from some congressmen.
Yes.
And I do hope that Biden will understand that U.S. provided security guarantees for Ukraine after we give up with the third largest nuclear power plant. And Putin's war against NATO already started. The battlefield is Ukraine. So don't be afraid, like it's written in Bible. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of nuclear threat. What Putin is saying, that he will push the button. No, it's not so easy. Even if you push the button, then it's a long technological process. And I'm sure that Putin generals, they have their families. they also Putin oligarchs. They want to replace Putin because they have stolen billions from Russians, and now they cannot enjoy it. So this is why we demand from Western communities, especially from Germany, stop helping Russian oligarchs by passing sanctions like Deutsche Bank and others. It's not just unfair. You will become the same, for in our opinion, like these criminals when you are helping Russian oligarchs to launder their money through different mechanisms instead of like stopping to do this.
Yeah, Hannah, I'm going to quote something that you've written. We must build a country on the foundation of Christian values and morals if we are to realize Ukraine's dreams. And then you quote Robert Schuman. And you and I had a discussion about Robert Schuman in your office 4 years ago. And you wanted to know this story that involved how did the new start for Europe begin? And it began with forgiveness and reconciliation, which is something you've really picked up on. And you quote him saying that he believed that the continent's future depended on the revival of Christian values. Ukraine has a special mission to revive these values in Europe. And so I have a slide here about that I've used before about Schuman's the declaration he made on the 9th of May 1950 when he was speaking of a world peace to end centuries-old rivalries and of Europe's shared destiny and responsibilities to the world, when he proposed an economic project that was a political expression of Christian ideals of forgiveness and reconciliation. What role does forgiveness and reconciliation play? Here is Schuman was actually in solitary confinement under the Gestapo when he was writing back to the French resistance saying, we French will have to learn to forgive and love the Germans to rebuild Europe after the war. And I know you've been talking now about the post-Putin Russia. What should that look like? And what's it going to take to rebuild Eurasia after this war?
So I think it's really important after post-victory Ukraine also to work with Ukrainian society, because Christian values, for them it's important, but in practice, because many of them lost beloved one, and I hope the role of churches will help our society really to go through this. How to say, healing the wounded hearts. And it will be not easy. I want to be honest with you. So, because if I read the Bible and I'm like talking to God by praying, because I really want to see the God's plan towards Ukraine. And sometimes when you are full of emotions and you are crying, it's not easy to understand why we are going through such painful, such hellish nightmare. So, of course, the hard work with Ukrainian society must be in place. And then also we will need to help people after post-Putin Russia also, like Germany and France. This is a very important period. But I think without Christian values to build strong Ukraine, not just economically strong, because the foundation of Christian values, this is a house built on the rocks, not on the like in the sea, on this house sand. Yeah. So this is really important. And when I dream in, because before I told many times that I would love to visit different republics of Russian Federation. And they know that victory for Ukraine matters for them. And also it's about Ukraine's vision, which is behind just our territory. It's not just about restoring territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine. It's about restoring in our hearts Christian values as a foundation of our actions.
Yes. Yes, in retrospect, after the wall came down, there were lots of Western advisors coming into the former Soviet Union, advising how to set up businesses and so forth and bring in capitalism. But the swamp was never drained. The process of decommunization never took place as it did in the Baltics, for example. And obviously, this will be a major priority. Let's just finish with this last quote from something you've written. My dream is one day to visit Moscow. And what do you want to do there?
I told what I want to do this, and I'm sure we will do this. I think we have to establish the monuments of the victims of Stalin regime during the last century and Putin's regime. So this will be the way how Russians will say, like, to Ukrainians that they are not just sorry about what's happened. So they need to sin for everything, for all these war crimes. So this is the only also way to build post-Putin Russia, when they will recognize the war crimes, they will punish, they will condemn, and it's not just about paying financial compensations. It's about monuments of killed for victims killed during 20 centuries of this communism regime and Putin's regime.
Now, Hannah, tell us about that, because you see, a lot of people in the West don't know what Stalin did to Ukraine. The forced famines of the 30s, in which millions of Ukrainians were killed. And that's not been acknowledged. This is what you're saying. It hasn't been acknowledged. And Putin is now exalting Stalin again. And until he is he is buried and Lenin is buried, we still have this ongoing festering evil source of future problems.
You are right. Until Russian society continue to how to admiring or making this cult of Stalin and Lenin, which is in mausoleum still. So this is why all this aggression against Moldova, Georgia, all their support to Assad regime in Syria, and now in Ukraine. So they have this, I don't know how it's in English, proklятие. So something which is like from evil is under them. So you will translate proklятие. So this is why, without how to say, покаяние, sin. You have to sin, yes, when you are sorry for something and you are asking God to forgive.
Confession and
Yes. So this is really important. And in Stalin, when he wasn't able to destroy Ukrainians, so he started artificial hunger, genocide. But Ukraine is a breadbasket of years, and even today, the full-scale war against Ukraine also creates a global food crisis, not just economic crisis, but also
for Africa. Yes.
So this is because Ukraine is a top 5 export producer of food. So now it's also about, there will be implications and negative consequences globally for economy, for food chain and others. And what is Putin now doing? He is seeing that even people in southern of Ukraine regions, they are against Putin. So they are not like nicely asking them. So this is why he is blackmailing us with chemical weapons, because the resistance of Ukrainian society is so high. So there is no option for him like to destroy us with chemical weapons. So like Stalin did, just through genocide, when 8 million of Ukrainians, when Ukraine was a breadbasket of Europe, were just killed. And there were examples of cannibalism when Ukrainians had to, I don't even want to say now.
Yeah. Hannah, I want to thank you for sharing from your heart. My wife and I are praying for you and your daughter, and for your nation, of course. And I've been part of many different prayer groups, churches here in Amsterdam, and in our organization alone, we're seeing so many people going with buses, with vans, taking supplies, bringing refugees back. Just yesterday, my wife was with some people who own a large company that makes bedding, and they've sent 7 truckloads of material to the borders and so forth. The world is very much on your side, listening, wanting to help. And I know this is the great dilemma: is how to engage militarily without escalating this whole war into the World War III. And so prayer is of greatest essence right now. And thank you, Hannah, for sharing from your heart. We can hear the pain that you're experiencing right now, and we're praying that one day you'll be able to see the fruit, on a positive sense, of all the agony, all the suffering that you're going through right now. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Jeff.